A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video, but more on that later.
Good morning. It's time to feed the chickens. And I thought that today maybe I would just chat about something that has been, honestly, I feel like I've gotten so many questions about it and I feel ready to talk about it. That is how it's been not being vegan anymore. So it's been over a year since we stopped being vegan, but we had been vegan, Lou and I, for almost a decade. You can link the video that we made a long time ago, a year ago, about the decision to stop being vegan if you're interested in like kind of where we were then. You hear our chickens? Let's go say hi to them. Okay, so I put up a slide on Instagram asking people what their questions were for Lou and I, mainly me, because Lou's not here right now, about what it was like to reintroduce animal products this last year and how we're feeling and all of that. And I got so many questions already. It's been like 15 minutes and the questions are pouring in. And it made me realize like how like diet and lifestyle is just such a thing that's so interesting, and so people are so curious about it. And I'm definitely like a person like that. Like I love hearing what people are doing, how people are living, what is supporting them. I think especially for me, like in new motherhood, like what moms are doing to feed themselves, feed their families, nourish their bodies so that they have the like strength and stamina to do mothering that the way that they want to. Because I think that was something that was my impetus. I got so many questions like, how did we know that it was time to make a change? And I think my body was just talking to me so loudly. And we have that video about explaining where I was then. But I feel like making that video, I was so nervous. Honestly, like that vegan identity we'd been vegan for a decade, almost a decade. So like 9.5 years, I think, when we decided to stop being vegan anymore. So that identity was so mine. I couldn't even to say that I wasn't going to do that anymore. I felt so much shame and so much like I almost felt like a failure, honestly. Like, wow, like I couldn't make this work. There's other people on the internet showing how veganism works for kids, how it works for moms, how it works for families, how it works for life. And it's like we had really given it a good go of a decade. And now after switching for a year, I'm like, I feel like I can think clearly, and I'm literally like, I don't know how I ate like that for so long. And I think it was one of those things. Hey, Freya. I think it's one of those things where I didn't know. When I went vegan, this is so long ago, backstory a little bit. I had been in like a high pressure tech sales job, living in New York City. I was a recent college graduate. I was drinking a ton of alcohol. I was eating a ton of processed food. I was drinking coffee. I had no connection to sourcing my food. I had no connection to health, like in relation to food. Of course, I had dieted and all that stuff, as most people I feel like have by the age of 20. What were we, 20? I think I must have been like 23 when I went vegan. Hi. Oh my gosh, Freya. Okay. She's excited. And I just had no like inkling of understanding of like food. And I remember some of our friends being like, but you could like eat local and things like that. And I was like, I didn't think that once I kind of watched some of those documentaries, vegan documentaries, I was like all or nothing. So I just did it. And obviously my body felt better from going from like binge drinking, blackout drinking, on the reg, eating absolute garbage, never working out, and then finding like yoga and veganism. 100%. Obviously I felt better, and I felt better for a long time, but I didn't know like what I'm doing now feels like. And I didn't know, like my whole life I feel like I hadn't really eaten a lot of meat. I kind of like was such a picky eater. When I was a kid, I just ate like chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese and frozen pizza and like really standard American diet. So I didn't have any like context of like what it felt like to eat maybe like more farm to table style. So that's all to say that the question of like, how do we know we're ready, is that my body was just like so exhausted, and I kept thinking about meat, and I kept thinking about eggs, and I was thinking about cheese, and that had never really been part of my veganism experience yet. So I was like, why is this happening? And I kept trying to fix it. And then finally I was just like, enough is enough. I need to like give this a try. And I think the thing that's really interesting coming from this perspective is like, there aren't a lot of vegans who stop being vegan and then go back to veganism. And I think that that's because it's such an intense way to live and structure your life. And I just feel like it didn't support me or my family physically. So that's kind of how we knew. And I feel like the other video, ooh, it's like dusty sandstorm coming through. That's kind of like the entry to this, is just like, how do we know? All the questions about that kind of experience I think was in the other video, and you can see I feel like I looked like scared and insecure and so unsure because I hadn't started eating them yet. We made that video and I was like, okay, I want to let the internet know, let you all know, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was so scared to share that news. And honestly, so much of the feedback was positive. So many other people had gone through that experience and been like, it's gonna be okay. And it really is okay. Like, I feel so much better in every single way. So we can kind of get into that now. So I thought we could do a little harvest and do a big chat about all these things. I have my beets in here and carrots in this bed, and I'm gonna pull them all with you while we go into this all. But first, the first beet. Look at this. There's something so satisfying about growing your own food. It's just incredible. I'm gonna probably make some beet kvass. Is this crooked? Oh my God, it's so crooked. So I think the thing, like the questions I'm getting the most are, how am I feeling? Energy update, skin update, hair update, all of that. Digestive system, how did that whole transition go? So I feel like we can get into the physicalness of it all, but I also am gonna talk about the morality. How do I feel about that? Because I got so many questions. I think it's probably honestly because we have a lot of vegans who are still here following us. And how do you go from like thinking that eating animals is murder to then just eating animals all the time? That's like a really big question. And then also Max and Lou. I got a lot of questions of like, how's Lou's arthritis doing? How was, oh, the cutest little beet. How is Max doing? We have a 2.5-year-old, and I was pregnant during his whole I was vegan during his whole pregnancy and the first year of his life. So a lot of time spent in that lifestyle. Some of these are so tiny and some are huge. So let's get into the how I'm feeling. It's honestly like hard to put into words how much better I'm feeling now that we eat this way. I think that it was really interesting to me, the whole first year of Max's life, I was like insatiably hungry. Like I just ate, but the vegan food had so much fiber that I would like eat and I'd feel so physically full, but I would feel like not satiated, if you know what I mean. Like I would still want to eat more and more. And I would just feel so heavy and so full because I was eating so much food. Like my plate size was so big, but I just never felt satisfied. Freya, leave it. It's a beet. It's not for you. Okay, can you move? Here. So I was literally so hungry and eating all the time, which is honestly like pretty common when you're first starting to nurse anyway. So I didn't really think much of it. And then when we started eating meat, I was like, oh my gosh, I was ravenous. For the first probably month or two, I was just eating so much food. And then it finally quieted. Like it used to be like when I woke up, I needed to like shove so much food in my mouth because I was so hungry from nursing Max all night long. And the funny thing is I still nurse Max all night long. We're still co-sleeping. I haven't night weaned him. So that's the thing that's really interesting is it's like, some people could say, well, your kid got older, so like everything calmed down. And it's like, well, I actually still nurse Max a ton. And if anything, my life is even more active because I'm chasing a 2-year-old around, like sprinting, biking, all these things. So I would say like weirdly, I almost need like more calories now than I did then. And my hunger has finally calmed down and I feel like my brain has so much more peace. Like, I don't know if it was like a constant sugar rush or something like that. Like I wasn't eating sugar. Like I was, Freya, leave it. I was eating a very well balanced vegan diet. That's a lot of people I get comments like, you should just have taken some B12. I'm like, yeah, it was a little more complicated than that. I supplemented B12 my whole time being vegan. I don't want to say like I knew what I was doing, but like I did a ton of research on it. I researched vegan pregnancy. I researched the kid vegan thing. I took the vegan kid feeding course. I looked at all the different things, and it just didn't work for me. And it's not to say it won't work for you, but I would definitely say look into it, because if you're feeling depleted, maybe you are depleted. And that's definitely where I was at. And so when I started eating, I first too, like I wasn't sure what the shift in diet was gonna mean. Like I didn't know when I decided not to be vegan anymore that I like was gonna be so animal based in the way that I eat. You know, like I kind of thought we would just like have a little bit of animal products to like round it out. And it's just like when we gave up that label, I was like, I really am just gonna listen to my body and eat what I want to eat. Like no rules, like nobody else is gonna tell me like what to eat. Like I'm just gonna like feel it out within myself and then go from there. And it turns out that like I needed a lot of animal products. Like I eat animal products probably at every meal. Like a standard day of eating for me is starting the day with probably like leftover meat from the night before and eggs. Like this morning I had eggs, some leftover cauliflower, some leftover chicken heart and ground beef, and some raw cheese and some sauerkraut. So it's like my breakfast looks so different. We do sourdough pancakes and stuff like that, but they have tons of eggs in them. We are getting a ton of eggs from our chickens right now. And so that would be like a standard breakfast, just like not so breakfasty. It's more like I would have stew for breakfast, like very high protein, high fat meal to like start off my day. And that's kind of like how I eat all day long. And it's just so satiating that like, I think that one of the things that's really interesting too is it's like I don't really crave any sweets. Like I remember when I was nursing Max all the time and I was eating vegan, like I for some reason just craved chocolate so much, because I think I was just craving fat. And like I was eating the avocados, I was eating the coconut milk, but there's something different when you're eating like tons of pasture raised butter and ghee and just like tallow. I cook all of our stuff in like animal fat now. So it's just been so radically different than what I expected. Just like adding a little bit of wild fish, it's been not like that. It's been like a full-blown dramatic shift in the way that we eat from a plant-based vegan diet to, honestly, I would say it's like an animal-based diet, because it's like I cook in animal fat, we have animal meat or animal products at every meal. Like unless it's a snack of like apple and almond butter or something like that, like there's most likely, and like we don't even do that much, honestly. Usually I would put like some cheese out for that with Max, and we eat raw cheese and raw dairy. That's other people asking like what we actually are eating. So that's kind of like running through what we eat is like a lot of slow cooked meat, animal fats, raw dairy that we get from a local farmer, and then raw cheese. I would love to honestly do all that here one day. Physical updates have been so interesting. Like I thought that it was going to be such a complex process reintroducing animal products to my body after a decade of not eating them. I thought I was gonna have to go really slow and make sure that my stomach felt okay, and it just wasn't like that. Like I started with eggs and I was like, ooh, this is feeling really good, and then soon after that I tried raw dairy, I think, then chicken, then we were out to dinner and with some friends, and there's a burger on the menu, and I was like, oh my gosh, my whole body is just saying that it wants to eat this burger. And I was like, I don't know. Like I thought I was gonna just kind of, it was still like a process for me to figure out how I wanted to eat animal products. And at first I'd been like, oh, I don't want anything that goes to a slaughterhouse. I just didn't feel like that resonated with me. But then in the moment I was at this restaurant and I was like, I really am just craving this meat. And my friend was like, oh my gosh, yeah, the beef comes from another person who was down the table, who I hadn't met yet. That was the first time I was meeting them at the table. It was their farm. The restaurant carried their meat. So yes, it went to a local slaughterhouse, but the meat was literally raised in their backyard. And I took that as a sign and I ate that burger, and I was like, wow, red meat was what I was needing. Like, I don't know if it was like the iron or the richness or what, but that kind of like opened the gateway to me starting to find local meat. So we source everything around here. Some of it's a little bit further to find the like grass-fed, grass-finished stuff. I haven't found anything super close to us. I think the farm that I get everything from is 2.5 hours from here. But they are like a small family farm that's not certified organic, but they do all that kind of practices. They are regenerative, focused on regenerative meat, how they raise their animals and stuff like that. So it was a process, but I feel like every the week that went by, I was just feeling more energized, more satisfied. My hair was growing faster, and I think that a thing for me mainly, sorry if this is loud, it's just so cool, we got these. I think the main thing, it's like, that I really, really noticed was how satisfied I felt from meals. Like the stableness of my energy. I feel like my moods were more stable. Yes, my skin and hair. I feel like one thing I did notice is that like my skin, I used to like scar really easily. Like my whole life had been like that. I think because I honestly wasn't eating any like collagen. Because like I said, I didn't eat a lot of meat when I was little. And I would always scar, even like a little scratch. And now I feel like my body heals so quickly. And I just think that's from like making a ton of meat stock, eating a lot of like cooking a lot of meat with bones on it, and just eating a lot more collagen. So that's one thing that I noticed. Healing quicker, satisfied, just feeling like honestly just brighter. Like I feel like I had gotten like, the only way I could try was like just like depleted and dull, and I just feel more energized. I feel more creative. I feel more inspired, and I think I just feel well fed. That's like in a way that I've never felt before, because I've never eaten like this before. I've never like actually had nice meat and raw dairy. And am I even in focus? Am I in focus? Okay, beets are clean. We also eat a lot of fermented food. So this is like a drink called beet kvass. We call it beet boss in our house because that's what Max likes to call it. Beet kvass, I make a lot of sauerkraut. I want to start making kombucha again, and water kefir, maybe even milk kefir. We make sourdough bread. Look at all these beets. Let's go to the next section. So what I was saying is that I feel like I also got some questions of like, how are you staying skinny while you're eating this way? Which is like such a funny thing, because I feel like I literally don't think about that kind of stuff that much anymore. I know a lot of people are like looking for ways to feel fit and skinny and stuff like that, but I think that for me, what's been so interesting is shifting my whole mindset on how do I nourish my body in the most effective way. Mainly kind of like gets me into the next chapter of questions, which is related to Max. So many people ask, like, was Max part of the reason why you stopped being vegan, and how's Max doing? And I think for me, it's like I really shifted my perspective. When I had gone vegan, it had definitely been related at first to the way I looked, like physically, wanting to be fit, all that. Then also looking into the environmental stuff, looking into the animal welfare stuff. That had been really all of the things. But then as a mom, my compass kind of shifted. My goal was to do what was best for my son, and what was best for my son was for me to feel energized, for me to have enough energy to take care of him, and for him to have food that fueled his growth, fueled his brain, gave him the building blocks to grow into a strong young man. And then when I started doing research on nutrient density, when I was starting to figure out what to feed him, I feel like it started coming up, and I didn't know what to do because it didn't align with veganism. And then once I finally gave myself space to really dive into like what would be best for him, that's when I learned about nutrient density, and that's when I feel like everything started shifting and making it so much easier for our family to stay healthy with this kind of food. So it's been a very special process, because yes, at home we eat like so whole food, like all pasture raised meat, all that. But then if we like go to a friend's house or we go to a birthday party, Max can totally eat the cake. He can eat whatever snacks are out. And it's really been such a beautiful process for him to get to interact without restriction and just have fun and go out to dinner and eat what he wants. We do that so rarely that to me it's more about the energetics of him being a part of it. Granted, Halloween is coming up, and I don't know what I'm going to do for that. I still have to think about it, because the thought of him eating like candy at 2.5 years old doesn't interest me so much. So I'm just going to have to think about that one and feel how I want to navigate that. But that's what I feel like first-time parenthood is like navigating new things, trying to figure out what resonates with you, being open-minded enough to let yourself change your mind. And yeah, that's where we're at. I feel like if I could do it again, I think I would have switched my diet a lot sooner. I would have like eaten like an ancestral animal-based diet to prepare my body to be pregnant. But what are you gonna do? I still ate I ate a really healthy like diet. I tried to do all the research I could to make my pregnancy as healthy and give Max everything he needed. I just, you only have the information you have when you have it. So here we go. We have 3 huge jars of beet kvass, and I'll just let that ferment probably for 2 weeks. The signs of a fun time in the kitchen. And then my favorite way to drink it is I just do like half beet kvass and then I do half sparkling water, maybe a squeeze of lemon, and it's a fun little tonic drink. You can also just take a shot of the beet kvass. It's really good for your like digestion and probiotics and all that good stuff. But thinking of like Max and all of the reasons why Max was also a huge catalyst of us deciding to change our lifestyle, one of the most beautiful parts of becoming a mother is having a child that is like your responsibility, is that you can quickly, at least for me, my experience is that I quickly realized that because I am like the primary caregiver of this child, it is so of the utmost importance that I take care of myself so that I can take care of him. And that has been so interesting because it's easier for me to set boundaries when I need them. It's easier for me to make decisions like leaving veganism behind, because if it was just for me, maybe I would have let myself get way more run down than I did. Looking back, I was pretty run down, but it definitely could have gotten way worse. And I think for me, I was just like, I can't let myself go down a slippery slope of feeling like I have nothing to give to him, because I want to be fully present. I want to give him the mother that he deserves. And that mother is somebody who is present, who knows how to regulate her emotions. That's honestly why how I inform so many of my decisions now is, how do I make decisions that are good for me and good for Max? And that creates this space for me to be brave with the way that I live, because it's not just for me anymore. And I think that that's like one of these like perks of motherhood that people don't talk about, is that it really helps you form into this woman who chooses her life and makes decisions that are good for her. And I feel like the people pleasing part is like slowly falls away, and you become this person who's like, no, I'm gonna make decisions that are good for my family because my family deserves that. And I deserve that too. And maybe I just couldn't completely embody that before I was a mom. I'm sure I could have. I just didn't. This has just been a really big catalyst for me to, I feel like, step into this new chapter of my evolution as a woman. And that's been really beautiful. And I feel like the ethicalness for me, that's what I wanted to connect to, is that it's not a useful feeling for me to eat meat and then feel guilt about eating that meat. I know that feels weird. I so long looked at eating animals as eating as murder. That's what I thought it was, because that's like that's the messaging that I took in and I subscribed to. And then when I changed that and was like, I need this for sustenance, this is not a choice that I'm just making without information. This is after 10 years of eating away that didn't sustain me. And I now need to sustain myself to take care of my child. And it's like morally not correct for me to not do what I need so that Max can have the mom that he deserves. So for me, I'm like, this isn't an ethical thing anymore. Humans eat meat. We are designed to, and I feel so much better at eating this way that I'm like, it's not wrong. And for me to have all these emotions that are connected to it, yes, at the beginning it was a process, but I think it was like my brain made a switch. Like I flipped a switch and I was no longer vegan, and I was like, I am going to source my meat the best that I can. Ultimately, we want to raise our own animals. And yes, it's a process. We can get more into hunting and things like that when we get to Lou's little chapter of this video, because Lou started hunting and that was a really powerful experience. Like Lou killed a deer, I think a month after we had stopped being vegan last year. And then I cooked that deer. I processed that deer. My dad came up and helped us process it. And that was a huge experience for our family. Really, really powerful. Yes, it's like hunting is like something that you feel all the emotions. I feel like when we kill an animal, it's not that I take it lightly. I'm so grateful for that animal's life and for that animal to feed me so I can take care of my son. And I think it's just going back to roots of like deep, deep gratitude for this animal's life and being all right with taking that energy and putting it into my body. And I think the only way I know how to describe it, which I don't know if it's the perfect way, is just like, it's not useful for me to feel all these negative emotions about eating this food, because the way that the food comes into our body, the love that I cook this food with, the like gratitude that I consume it with, that's nourishing my body too. So if I sit there and I eat this meat and I feel guilty about it, that's not honoring this animal's life. Like, this animal died so that I could eat. Like we hold hands and we pray before our meal. We are grateful for what we have gotten. We hope that this food nourishes our body. And it's like, I don't go to church, but we pray before every single meal. And that's not something I grew up with. It's just something that honestly completely evolved the first time we ate meat. Like, I had this egg, or it was an egg at first, and then it was the deer that Lou killed. And the first time we ate that deer's heart that night, grilled it, and I made tacos with that heart. And I was like, we were sitting there and it was like the only thing that could be done before we sat down to, like, we started eating, was that we prayed. And that's became a full tradition. Before every single meal, we'd take a second and we thank that food, those animals, everything for coming into our life and for fueling our bodies, fueling our minds. And it's really, really powerful. And it's like, it weirdly makes me feel even more connected to animals than I ever was from veganism, where I feel is like, death is bad. I'm not a part of this system. I'm separating myself from everything. And now I feel like I am enmeshed in the land. Like, I am grateful for all of it. And I also, you see so much more death when you're living on a homestead. You know, a chicken dies, or different things like that happen. And I feel like before I could just be completely removed from life and death. And I feel like also as I'm getting older, like death becomes more a part of your life. People die, animals die, we eat animals. Like, the birth and death cycle is a part of life. And I think that for me before, I almost wanted to like push it away and be like, I'm not a part of that. That's bad. Labeling things like so white and black and all of that. And it's just, it's been so opening to me to just dive into this land as much as we can and become part of this community, get to know our farmers, get to know friends and family, and share meals with them in a completely different way. So for me, I'm like, this is the ethical choice for me now. I know that sounds strange if you have the vegan messaging in your mind, but for me, this is the ethical choice, because this is the ethical choice for my body, for my son's body, for my husband's body, and it is making us feel so much more connected to the earth, feeling so much more energized and nourished. So yeah, I don't have a moral problem with it. And I think that that's something that I just processed. It doesn't mean that I don't have empathy, and doesn't mean that I don't have sadness. The thought of killing a deer when I've seen that deer grow up as a baby and then know that I'm now eating that deer. Yes, that's a process, but I think it only feels so unnatural to me because I didn't grow up living amongst this cycle. Like, if you had grown up like on a rural farm, or living properly off the land the way so many communities of people do, that liver that you eat of an animal that was just hunted would be the most sacred thing. And you wouldn't even give that to the dogs. You would make sure that you were eating that. You were giving that to the people in your community or village that needed that nutrients the most. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but I just feel like if you're feeling that inkling that your body is craving something, look into why that's happening and explore it, and understand that everything that you think is also coming from some place, and knowing your sources. And yeah, I honestly trust the process of my life, and I'm totally fine. I have no regrets, but it's like, this has been such a huge, beautiful, good shift for us to change the way that we eat. And yeah. That's that. I feel like the next chapter is about Lou. So let's go to a spot that's all about Lou. So here I am. This is Lou's construction site. He's been working on this for the last almost 2 months. I don't even know if he showed you any of it, but he's got a big, massive spot coming in for a work shed, hopefully. He has been clearing this land. This is gonna be our house site. When we have a house, a real house with laundry and a bathtub and running water. And my goodness, I am so excited. We actually have moved to my parents' house to hibernate for the winter, Max and I, because it's just getting too hard. The containers, we did it for 6 months up here and it was amazing. The summer was so beautiful, but as winter comes, it's just better for us to be in a house. So that's why I'm up here alone, and I actually don't have much time. I have to run back down, and it's almost Max's nap time, so I need to be there to put him to sleep, because I still nurse him to sleep, which I know is also a thing. We do a lot of things different up here. Okay, so Lou, my husband Lou, he also was vegan the whole time that I was vegan. And luckily for me, when I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have started fetch with her. When I was like, I'm not feeling good, I think I need to change my diet, he was no hesitation, of course. We need to do what you need to do for your body. And I think he was also under the assumption that he was probably going to be like pretty plant-based, just adding a little bit of meat. And then he also completely shifted to the way that I was cooking and really enjoyed it. And I think the thing that's been so interesting for him is how much he's enjoyed hunting. Like, hunting has been a huge thing. He has not gotten to go hunting as much as he would have liked, but when he's done it, it's been incredible and such a powerful, moving experience for him. And I think that's going to become a huge part of his life, honestly. I think that right now we're really in construction mode, and just getting a house up here is both of our #1 goal. So he hasn't had a lot of time to hunt, but the hunting experiences he has had have been so profound, and just he got a bow this year, and practicing with the bow has been so empowering for him. I feel like it's really beautiful, and I think it's really the same way that like I feel like me becoming a mother has like really pushed me into my femininity. I feel like for him becoming a father did the same thing with his masculine energy, and then hunting just it makes that even bigger, and all this construction work, and we've just really pushed into the poles of our energies and are really enjoying that feeling. So hunting has been a huge thing for him. The other thing for him is that I feel like he's been able to put on muscle a lot easier, is what he told me to tell you. And also that he has so many days where he doesn't end up getting to eat until like maybe even dinner, especially now that Max and I have moved to the house. He just doesn't really make himself food anymore. I feel like he just forgot how to cook. I don't know. And so it's been a lot easier for him to do that with meat-based food, because he can just have this huge, amazing dinner. And then, sure, he can get hungry during the day, but like he's satisfied, and I think that works well for him. And I think he's super excited too about having animals, and just the thought for both of us to live off the land and grow our own food and get meat animals and probably get dairy animals in the future. We're not like there yet. Once we have a house, I think we could consider getting that. But it's just a really, really cool experience and really empowering to feel like we can create a relationship to the land, that we can live off of it. And that's been really special, more special than we were expecting, because it hadn't really been in our plan when we bought the land. But it's just evolved that way. And the other question that I got so much on Instagram was everybody asking about Lou's rheumatoid arthritis. So when we were living in New York City, right after we'd graduated from college, Lou got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So he was taking he ended up getting put on like an injectable medicine, and he barely could tie his shoes. Like his hands would having so much pain. He had tons of back pain, all this different stuff, and the doctors didn't really understand what it was, and they just labeled it rheumatoid arthritis. He got the blood work done, all the stuff. He got the drugs. Then we moved to Berlin to start this new creative life, and it became really tricky for us to get his medication there. So that's kind of when we just become vegan, hoping that the vegan diet would also help his rheumatoid arthritis. He had this massive flare when we were living in Berlin, and that's when I found this protocol, it was called the Pattison program, and it was like a super, super intense vegan-based, plant-based protocol. A lot of juicing, a lot of greens, no processed food, no food. It was just, we both became so scrawny trying to do this, because I was doing it with him, and it did diminish his symptoms, but the quality of our life, yes, it was pain-free. So in context, it was amazing, but the reality was within, you had to live your life within such fine parameters that to make it work. And that's also when he did the water fast. I don't know if any of you have come to our channel from that water fast video, but Lou's symptoms were, he was always trying to manage these different rheumatoid arthritis symptoms. Fast forward to, we were living in Massachusetts working on this boat. We ended up stumbling upon this thing called subconscious reprogramming. If you watch my motherhood video, I talked about subconscious reprogramming in that a little bit. And we started working with Heather and Kent from the Mind Change, is what it's called, their system. And Lou did a lot of subconscious reprogramming around his rheumatoid arthritis. And that, I honestly think that was the biggest catalyst, not food. Yes, lifestyle plays a part in inflammation in the body. Clearly, it definitely is something. But your mind is so powerful. And so he did a lot of reprogramming on different core memories, experiences in his body. And he's done a few other different techniques of subconscious reprogramming. And that, I think, would be the real thing that shifted his pain in his body and the healing in his body. But his RA, he's literally never been stronger in his life eating this animal based. When he was plant based, I think he was able to get his pain symptoms down, but it was always a management system, managing thing. Definitely felt like he still had rheumatoid arthritis. Now with the subconscious reprogramming and also with this new way of eating, I feel like he is stronger than he's ever been and has so many tools in his toolkit to manage anything that comes up. But he would never say that he has RA anymore. He is definitely 100% healed from that, which I know if you have chronic disease, and has a lot of doctors use language that this is something that you have forever. The same way, I had an eating disorder for when I was growing up, and they say like, you'll have to manage this forever. Lou and I think differently about a lot of that kind of thing now. So we have benefited so much in our life from taking our health into our own hands, and especially our mental health, with doing things like the Mind Change program, or I also really love this this modality called Emotion Code. It's amazing, and we do a lot of those sessions on ourselves. I'm actually getting trained in that right now, and I love Emotion Code so much. It's a way to clear your body of trapped emotions, and I know this can all come off as very strange, very woo-woo if you've never been a part of this, but our brain is powerful. Their subconscious mind is real. There's so much information out there on quantum physics if you're interested in that kind of thing. And yeah, I guess I'll just end the video at that. Lou is doing really well. I'm doing really well. Our son is doing well. He is such a good eater. I feel like when anybody eats with us, they're like, oh my gosh, he's such a good eater. He literally is eating like pad thai, like homemade pork liver pad thai on homemade sourdough bread as a snack. He likes stew. He will eat chicken heart. He is like so open. His palate is amazing that he'll drink broth. And I really attest that to focusing on these nutrient dense foods and giving him access to only really, like, I just don't like give him processed food, because I feel like if I give him that stuff, that it'll change his palate and shift it towards that. And this is not to say that I'm not going to control the way he eats as a grown kid. Like, even at birthday parties and play dates and stuff like that, I don't say, oh no, Max, you can't eat that. I don't want that in his brain. I want him to feel like he can go live his life. But when he's at home, he is getting that nutrient dense meal after meal after meal after meal. And I think that that's been doing a wonder for him and for me and for Lou. And I mean, it's like Freya's the healthiest of us all, and all she eats is meat. So I feel like she was like a sign to be like, this is the food that will give you strength, because this girl is fit. That is the update. I hope that is the information you're looking for. If you have any other questions, let me know, and I'm happy to answer them. But I do know that food is such a personal thing, and it's a process, and I trust you to trust your own intuition on what you need. Like, this is just my experience, and I have no desire at all to tell people what they should be eating. I think that was like a huge part of the vegan thing for me. It was like, I needed everybody to know this, and if you only knew this, then you would eat this way. And I just have no desire to be a part of that anymore. I just want to find ways that nurture myself, nurture my family. And if it's something that you're interested in, these recipes and this new way of life, I would love to share them with you, because it's been so magical. But I'm by no means saying that you have to eat like this. This is the only way to eat, because it's just not. I think everybody needs to figure out what works for them and what works for their family, what works for their life. Because, yeah, that's it. That's the update. I hope it was good and you enjoyed it and you learned something. And yeah, still here keeping an open mind about all things in life. All right, let's go. And having a wonderful time just out here hanging with you and my dog, alone on the land. A rare, rare occurrence. Okay, see you later.
A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. While rendering the color corrections for this edit, I put together a quick sign-up page for Dana's upcoming new cookbook project. Squarespace makes the page design process incredibly simple, and I especially like how they automatically organize these pages into categories, so you know exactly who signed up for which product. And you can even automate the email responses so that they go out on a certain timeline. The new layout tools have gotten so seamless and responsive that building pages like this is something I can literally do in minutes, not hours. Best of all, being able to preview how the page will look on mobile devices is key, because it allows you to go back and forth between layouts until you find a good compromise for the widest range of formats, especially since more and more of our traffic these days is mobile. If you'd like to check it out for yourself, head to squarespace.com/wildweroam for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.